Vegan plant-based diets for eczema. Do they actually work? And what's the best way to maximize your results? In this video, we're breaking down everything you need to know about vegan and plant-based diets for eczema and how they compare to other diet options. We'll also cover some common pitfalls, foods to prioritize, what to avoid, and how to track your progress over time. So stick around. Hi, I'm Dr. Chanu Dasari, a surgeon dedicated to reducing inflammation caused by gut microbiome imbalances. I myself struggled with digestive dysfunction and autoimmune inflammation in my early 20s and successfully put together a methodology that works not only in me, but also in my patients. My method is called the Mind-Gut Immunity Approach and has resulted in thousands of successes over the years. If you or someone you know struggles with eczema and wants to rid themselves of inflammation for good, check out our website, mgiclinic.com, and schedule a discovery call with me. I'll walk you through some very practical steps for eczema recovery and how to achieve lasting results in just 6 weeks. Also, on the website, we have multitudes of free resources on how you can eliminate eczema naturally to help you get started. So check it out in the description below to get started. Also, before I forget, please like and follow to receive more content such as this. All right, let's jump right in. Here's a 2023 study that found that frequent intake of plant-based foods was linked to reduced risks of atopic dermatitis exacerbation. And here's another 2023 study that explores the potential benefits of a well-planned vegan diet for eczema and discusses how plant-based foods and supplements might protect against inflammation and provide skin health. Most dermatologists will tell you that diet doesn't matter for eczema. So how do we know what truly works? As I mentioned in my other video called Ideal Diet for Eczema, I strongly support using customized phytonutrient-based diet plans tailored to each person's unique needs. I use 4 criteria to determine whether a diet will work for eczema or not. And this doesn't mean that the diets need to be vegan or completely plant-based. To recap, the 4 criteria are phytonutrients, macronutrient requirements, microbiome specificity, and food sensitivity. For a more in-depth discussion on these, check out the Ideal Diet for Eczema video. But for now, let me give you a brief overview. First, let's look at plant-based diets and how they compare to other options like the Phyto-diet, which I recommend for eczema. From some of my other videos, you may remember the concept of complex proteins. Certain complex proteins trigger an immune response, worsening eczema symptoms. We eat protein in our diets. It can come from a variety of sources, both plant and animal. A protein is basically a bunch of amino acids connected together. When the protein enters our digestive system, enzymes in our intestine break up these into individual components called amino acids, which then get absorbed. These intestinal enzymes are called proteases. And the reason this is relevant is sometimes the proteases don't get the job done, and we're left with large particles of protein that linger in our intestines and bloodstream for long periods of time. Why does this happen? Well, certain types of protein are hard to break down. Also, there may not be enough protease to break down the proteins. As you already know, the gut is just one big, giant immune organ. So these incompletely digested proteins register as a foreign threat and generate an immune response. Basically, the body thinks it's under attack by these large undigested proteins. So then it secretes a bunch of immune chemicals which cause inflammation, and that can be a problem. Next, you also have the arachidonic acid pathway, which is directly related to the consumption of animal-based cholesterol. All animal cells have a membrane wall that contains fats and cholesterol, which convert into arachidonic acid and cytokines in our bodies and generate inflammation. Do all animal-derived products contain arachidonic acid? No, just meat and fat-containing dairy products. Next, you also have the arachidonic acid pathway, which is directly related to the consumption of animal-based cholesterol. You can also have problems with saturated fat causing inflammation. Here's an article that looks at the role of saturated fats in producing inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha and interleukin-6. Here's the bottom line. Many animal-based foods either contain complex proteins, cholesterol that leads to arachidonic acid production, or saturated fat that trigger TNF-alpha and interleukin-1 and 6. Together, these factors exacerbate autoimmune inflammation. Moreover, certain types of meat and dairy can negatively impact the gut microbiome. This is why vegan diets can sometimes be effective for eczema. They cut out all of these inflammatory foods. That said, vegan and plant-based diets have their own challenges, which I'll address later in this video. The vegan diet for eczema centers entirely on plant-based foods that tend to be higher in fiber and carbohydrates than fats and proteins. Variations such as lacto or ovo-vegetarian diets exist, but here we'll focus on plant-based diets as a whole. This diet incorporates substituted items like vegan meats and cheeses, as well as butter alternatives. Many of these substitutes are cashew-based, soy-based, or coconut oil-based and mimic traditional animal-based products. Examples include Beyond Meat, Impossible Meat, Diet cheese, and plant-based milk alternatives like soy, oat, or coconut milk. The purpose of this diet is to avoid the inflammatory triggers commonly found in meat and dairy products. But here's the thing, remember the 4 criteria I outlined earlier? Let's take a closer look at how this diet stacks up in the long term. Let's dive into the first criteria, phytonutrients. Phytonutrients are micronutrients sourced from plant-based superfoods. These powerful compounds are rich in antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties, which can aid individuals with eczema by reducing inflammation throughout the body, including in the skin and in the gut. Here's a 2021 study on the relationship between gut microbiome, probiotics, and their interaction in the treatment of eczema, especially related to histamine production. And here's a 2023 study analyzing the use of polyphenols as nutraceuticals for treating dermatologic conditions such as eczema. Phytonutrients are categorized into key groups such as polyphenols, terpenes, thiocyanates, fiber, resistant starches, omega fats, and alkaloids. These micronutrients play an essential role in calming inflammation and supporting overall health. When adopting a vegan or plant-based diet for eczema, it's certainly possible to consume an abundance of phytonutrients, but only with mindful food choices. If, for example, your vegan diet includes a lot of processed flour, sugar, or fake meats and cheeses, these processed foods may lack phytonutrients and instead contain additives that contribute to inflammation. This would be a step backwards. But if your vegan diet incorporates resistant starches, fiber, omega oils, and a variety of herbs and whole vegetables, you'll be much more likely to get the phytonutrients needed to support healing from eczema. Now let's talk about macronutrient requirements. The vegan and plant-based diets for eczema often struggle to meet macronutrient needs properly. Macronutrients include carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. By using the calculator on my website and entering your height, weight, and activity level, you can estimate your specific macronutrient requirements. If you're following a vegan diet, adjustments will include increasing fat and protein while reducing carbohydrate intake. In general, a diet that gets half of its calories from fat is normally a good thing. Although I don't particularly like saturated fats and meats and certain plant-based foods because, as I've said earlier, saturated fats are associated with inflammatory processes, I also don't like animal-based cholesterol and meat, which can lead to an increase in arachidonic acid levels in the body. I describe both of these pathways of eczema inflammation in my other videos on my channel, so if you need a refresher, feel free to check out those videos. So when I design diets for my clients, they're generally lower in carbs for obvious reasons. Most of the fats come from omega plant sources, and those problems are avoided. I also ensure there's at least 100 grams of protein in the diet, which can be challenging if you're relying solely on plant-based foods. You'll likely need to incorporate protein shakes made with plant-based protein sources. Additionally, vegan diets for eczema often overlook the importance of balancing carbs, fats, and proteins. They tend to neglect fiber tracking, which can pose problems when optimizing the gut microbiome. Next, let's look at microbiome specificity. Let's return to this equation. Bad bacteria and fungus feed on carbs, leading to inflammation. Vegan diets are generally higher in carbs, and some of these carbs are unhelpful. So do vegan diets lead to healthier bacteria? The answer is a clear no. And I know this might sound controversial because many people on YouTube claim that the gut microbiome diversity improves with vegan diets. Even Reddit has discussions that seem to support this, but let me give you some practical perspective. I've reviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of stool studies over my career, and most of the time, people following vegan diets for eczema do not appropriately select for good bacteria in their intestines through their diet. The nature of eczema involves inflammation driven by dysfunctional gut microbiome. So at the start of our program, we use patented probiotics from Japan to recalibrate the microbiome and eliminate harmful bacteria. And how do you promote the growth of this good bacteria? It's not by avoiding carbs, it's by choosing the right ratios and quantities of phytonutrients. And this is where the mind-gut immunity method truly shines. We design a plan that encourages the growth of specific strains of beneficial bacteria, which form a protective biofilm and eliminate harmful bacteria and fungi. Over time, the body reduces its production of pro-inflammatory markers like TNF-alpha and interleukin-6, thanks to these beneficial bacteria. The main issue with a vegan diet for eczema is that it fails to address the root cause of the problem. You end up feeding bad bacteria non-selectively because there's no emphasis on resistant starch or fiber. Additionally, vegan and plant-based diets allow for many plant-based sugars, carbs, and chemicals, which can trigger eczema flares. And I've seen this pattern where people improve slightly for a short period of time, but then ultimately face challenges and fail on vegan diets for eczema because a diet doesn't resolve gut microbiome dysfunction. However, a plant-based diet can work for eczema if specific principles are followed. That's where the Phyto-diet steps in. It targets the root microbiome problems associated with eczema, and this approach allows for long-term dietary flexibility, including cheat meals without adverse effects. I typically teach our clients how to incorporate cheat meals during the second or third month of the program because by then they've resolved most of their gut issues sustainably, and I'm not a fan of temporary solutions, and while the vegan diet might help during flare-ups, it's not a viable long-term strategy compared to customized phyto diets that we create for our clients. Over the years, I've spoken to many people during discovery calls who've tried and struggled with plant-based diets for eczema. Most of them report temporary relief only to have their symptoms return once they reintroduce carbs. It's a story I hear often. While the vegan diet for eczema can offer short-term benefits, the real solution lies in addressing the gut microbiome for lasting relief long-term. Now let's dive into the final criteria, food sensitivities. Food sensitivities are essential consideration while dealing with eczema. In my talks, I cover 4 main types of food sensitivity tests: the skin prick test, the IgE blood test, the IgG4 blood test, and the newer mediator release blood test. For a deeper dive into these tests, take a look at my video discussing food sensitivity testing for eczema. When it comes to the vegan diet, there are a variety of foods that are plant-based but can still cause sensitivities. Common culprits include processed foods like sugar, sugar alcohols, dyes, chemicals, and whole food proteins like beans, lentils, and peas. I've seen all of these show up on sensitivity tests over the years. This means that the probability of being sensitive to one or more vegan plant-based foods is relatively high, and that's why adopting a vegan and plant-based diet for eczema can be risky. It limits your food options and increases the likelihood of sensitivities developing. All right, that's my talk. In the comments below, share with me your experience with vegan diets, what worked for you and what didn't. I would love to hear about your journey. As you know, I've had great success using the mind-gut immunity method with my clients, and I strongly advocate for customized phyto diets and focused gut microbiome recalibration to achieve lasting results. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content such as this. As always, this is Dr. Chanu Dasari with the Mind Gut Immunity Clinic, and I'll see you next time.